Before time, before space, there was a 0 point. At the heart of infinity exists a motionless center called paradise. From there sprang all energy, all matter, and all spirit. The entire universe is an echo of that eternal core. And in the end, everything created will return to the point where it all began. A few days ago, I was talking with a friend. Between laughter and comments, a curious topic came up. Paradise. Of course, I immediately thought of what we've all heard at some point. The Garden of Eden, the place where supposedly human history began according to the Bible. But my friend told me something that made me think. Paradise is not just a garden lost in time. It is the 0 point of all creation. That phrase kept echoing in my head, so I started to investigate. And what I found was much greater than I ever imagined. Paradise, according to the Bible. In the scriptures, paradise is usually associated with Eden, that perfect place where Adam and Eve lived in harmony with God before the fall. A physical, earthly space full of trees, rivers, and fruits. Even later in the New Testament, paradise appears as a synonym for the dwelling of the righteous after death, a promise of eternal rest, a return to what was lost. Paradise, according to the Urantia book. But the Urantia book takes it to another level. There, paradise is not a garden, nor a planet, nor a future promise. It is an eternal center, the unchanging nucleus of the cosmos, a place outside of time and space, which has no beginning and no end. They call it the 0 point of creation, because from it spring all realities, matter, energy, spirit, and even the laws that govern the universe. Imagine a cosmic clock where everything that exists turns around a single axis. That axis is paradise, the motionless heart of infinity. Beyond the text's other writings, both mystical and philosophical, have tried to describe a supreme center of origin. From the Greek omphalos, considered the navel of the world, to esoteric traditions that speak of a point of divine emanation. Even modern science, in its search for an absolute beginning with the Big Bang, seems to brush against the same idea, that everything emerged from a point, from an unimaginable center. Paradise as 0 point. And here is where everything converges. Paradise is not simply a destination or a place of rest. It is the source, the origin, the mystery that sustains entire universes. An eternal space that does not move, but on which all movement depends. Eden may have been the beginning of humanity, but paradise is the beginning of everything that exists. The nature of paradise. When I kept digging into this topic, I discovered something that blew my mind. Paradise is not a place in the sense that we usually imagine it. It is not a heaven as painted in pictures or as described by some popular religions. According to the Urantia book, paradise is eternal, uncreated, and immutable. That is, it never had a beginning, and it will never have an end. It is the only place in all of reality that does not change, that does not move, and that does not deteriorate. And the most impressive thing is that it does not belong to time or to space. It is beyond those dimensions that, for us, are everything, beyond time and space. Imagine for a moment that the idea of yesterday, today, and tomorrow disappears. That there is no past or future, no up or down, only an absolute present and an eternal here. That is paradise, a fixed point in the middle of the infinite ocean of universes. It does not rotate, it does not move, it does not orbit. It is like the only unbreakable anchor in a cosmos that is always in motion, source of all that exists. Another thing that I found fascinating is that from there, absolutely everything emerges. Matter, energy, and even spirit. Paradise is described as the very source of creation, an eternal spring from which the physical and the spiritual flow, as if it were a cosmic clock that does not move, but from which everything else is set in motion. The immutable center of the universe. They call it the fixed center of the universe, and here is the curious part. While everything we know spins, evolves, and transforms, paradise remains the same. It is like that invisible nucleus that sustains the entire universe without being touched by the passage of time. And although it may sound abstract, that idea connects us with something very powerful. That there exists a place, a zero point, where everything finds its origin and at the same time its purpose. Okay, let's take a pause. So far, we've been talking about something that sounds almost impossible to grasp. A paradise that appears as the point of origin, the very beginning of everything. A place that defies logic because it wasn't created, it does not age, and it belongs neither to time nor to space. Think about it for a moment. We live in a fragile world where everything changes, everything is born and dies. And yet here we are told of something eternal, immutable, a fixed center of the universe. The question becomes inevitable. Why is it that deep inside this does not feel foreign to us? Why is it that even if we call it myth, story, or belief, something within whispers that we belong to that origin? Maybe the answer lies in that inner spark we all carry. Because although we are made of matter that fades away, within us beats a spirit that longs to return to the eternal. And then, something striking emerges. Paradise may not only be a place, it might be the deepest echo of what we truly are. And here is where things get even more unsettling, because if paradise does not belong to time or space, then where is it? We look at it from our smallness, from a planet lost in a sea of galaxies. But if we follow this thread, the vision shifts. Paradise is not a myth floating in nothingness. It is described as the very center of creation. From there, the dimensions of the cosmos unfold. Havona, the perfect universe, the 7 superuniverses that contain us. And beyond, outer levels in constant formation, as if the universe itself kept breathing and expanding into infinity. The striking thought is this: what for us seems like a distant heaven, for the entire cosmos is its very heart. Paradise at the center of creation. A friend once asked me, what is paradise really? And I couldn't help but stop and think. Because of course we all have an idea. A perfect place, eternal, almost impossible to imagine. But when I began researching different texts, both biblical and extra-biblical, I discovered something fascinating. Paradise is not just a symbolic space, but according to the Urantia book, it is described as the very center of all creation. It is not a poetic metaphor, but literally the fixed, eternal, and unchanging point from which everything else originates. The place where matter, energy, and spirit intertwine into a single core. Paradise and Havona, the perfect universe. But paradise is not isolated. It has a direct relationship with Havona. According to the descriptions, Havona is a perfect, eternal universe, a model that serves as a reference for everything else. It is like the mirror of what perfection means: order, beauty, and absolute balance. The connection between paradise and Havona is profound. One is the source, the other is the living example of that source. Paradise and the 7 superuniverses, and from there the expansion continues. From paradise extends a relationship with the 7 superuniverses, vast realms, incomprehensible to our finite minds, yet they represent the great divisions of material and spiritual creation. The interesting thing is that each superuniverse, with its countless inhabited worlds, holds a direct link to that fixed center, Paradise. Paradise and the outer levels, the expanding cosmos. And finally, there are the outer levels, what some call the expanding cosmos. Realms still in formation, continuing to grow, stretching beyond the known. And the astonishing thing is to realize that even in that infinite movement, the relationship with Paradise remains the same, an eternal center sustaining everything else. And something important, each of these points, Paradise as the center, Havona, the 7 superuniverses, and the expanding cosmos, we will explore in depth in upcoming videos. Here, we are only opening the door, giving just a general glimpse, so that later we can dive fully into each theme and uncover in detail how all these pieces connect. Function of Paradise. Origin of energy. They say that everything that exists arises from the same point, that every particle, every ray of light, every universe has its root in an absolute center. Paradise. It is not only a sacred place, but the very source of all energy. From there flow the currents that feed suns, that ignite galaxies, that sustain life itself. Architectural model of all creation. But Paradise does not only give origin, it is also the pattern, the master plan. Imagine it as the eternal architecture upon which all creation was designed. Every world, every universe, every reality has as its reference that perfect and immutable model. It is the standard that defines what order is, what harmony is, what perfection is. Point of destiny. And at the same time, it is the final destination. Everything that evolves, everything that advances, tends to return there. It is as if every creature, every spirit, carried deep inside an invisible compass pointing to the same place, Paradise. The origin becomes the goal, the source becomes home. And up to this point, we see how Paradise is not only a place, but a living center of energy, of model, and of destiny. But then arises an inevitable question. If everything is born, inspired, and returns to this eternal point, how is such a vast universe organized? The answer leads us to understand the deepest mystery, the government of Paradise presence of the Deity of Paradise. In the heart of eternity, there are no golden thrones nor human crowns. There is presence. Paradise is the living dwelling of the Deity, the place where the divine is not perceived as a myth, but as a constant reality. There, the will of the Creator radiates in perfect calm, sustaining all that exists without needing to impose force, because its mere existence is law. The Creator, Son, and their role. From this sacred center depart the Creator Sons, the architects of universes. They are the bearers of the divine spark, those who bring the eternal model to worlds in formation. Every inhabited galaxy, every planet with life, has been touched by that silent and transcendent labor. They are, in a certain sense, the living extension of Paradise in the infinite expansion of the cosmos. Cosmic administration from this center. And all of this converges in an order that transcends politics, systems, and human hierarchies. Paradise is the nucleus of cosmic administration. From there, it is not ruled with decrees, but with balance. Arbitrary laws are not dictated, but harmony is maintained, which sustains the totality of creation. It is a government that needs no armies nor borders, because its authority is inscribed in the very structure of the universe. Up to this point, what we have seen is but a glimpse of the magnitude of Paradise. We have spoken of its function as the origin of all energy, as the architectural model of the universe, and as the inevitable point to which all returns. And now, with the government of Paradise, we understand that it is not a static place, but a living center, with order, with presence, and with purpose. Personally, when I think of this, I feel that every detail points to something much greater than we can comprehend, a universal order that is not coincidence, but design. And the most fascinating thing is that what we have said is only the surface. Because later we will delve into who the Creator Sons truly are, what their role is in this vast stage, and also into the deities and the cosmic administration that sustain all this order. For now, we are left with this idea. Paradise doesn't only exist, it governs, sustains, and guides all that was, all that is, and all that will be. And of course, when speaking of paradise as the center, model, and government of the cosmos, an inevitable question arises. How does all of this fit with the other ways humanity has tried to explain its origins? Because we are not only facing a cosmic description, but also a contrast of visions. While science speaks of the Big Bang as the beginning of time and space, many religious traditions have defended the idea of a center of the world, an axis, a navel of the universe. It is what in so many cultures is known as the axis mundi, that point where the divine touches the human, where the eternal connects with the temporal. We then enter a fascinating terrain, that of philosophical and theological comparisons, which not only make us think about the origin of everything, but also about our role as beings who live in time, in the face of the existence of a possible eternal center. Philosophical and theological contrasts. When we try to understand paradise as the eternal center of all creation, we cannot avoid looking at the other stories and worldviews that in different ways have tried to explain the same thing. Scientific Big Bang. From the perspective of modern science, everything began with a singularity, an initial explosion that gave rise to time, space, and matter. For physics, that is the absolute beginning, the moment when the non-existent became cosmos, religious traditions, and the center of the world. On the other hand, most ancient cultures have spoken of a central place, the sacred axis that sustains creation. The Greeks spoke of the omphalos, the navel of the world. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, Jerusalem was considered that central point. In other civilizations, such as the Mesoamerican ones, we find the image of the sacred mountain that connects heaven and earth, the axis mundi. This concept repeatedly appears as a universal intuition. Whether it is a mountain, a cosmic tree, or a temple, the axis mundi represents that connection between the eternal and the transitory, between the divine and the human. It is the cultural trace that man has always intuited that there must exist a center of convergence. Spiritual implications. Here arises the great question: if there really exists an eternal center, what role do we play, beings who dwell in time? The vision of paradise as an absolute point not only explains the origin of energy and cosmic order, it also invites us to see ourselves as temporal travelers on the way to the eternal. And in that contrast, an immense horizon opens up. What we perceive today as ephemeral could in reality be part of a journey toward the final convergence with that divine center. Paradise is not only a memory of the origin, it is also a brutal reminder of our destiny. A symbol that shouts to us, everything began there, and everything will return there. We are part of a chain that returns to the 0 point. Our evolution, with all its achievements and failures, is not an escape forward, but a return. And here the uncomfortable appears. What if paradise were not an idyllic garden, but a dark mirror that forces us to look at what we really are? And what if humanity, obsessed with progress, does nothing but repeat an eternal cycle that always ends in the same place? This vision breaks the comfortable idea of the ascending path. It confronts us with an uncomfortable truth. Perhaps we do not move forward, but we turn in circles, repeating mistakes, destroying, forgetting, while the eternal center watches us. Paradise as a point of origin and return can be a refuge, but also a judgment. A force that reminds us that nothing escapes the final convergence, and that, sooner or later, we will all return to the same point where history began. This mystery is not only history, it is a warning. Paradise is not a distant myth, it is a mirror of our destiny. If you want to continue exploring these secrets, subscribe, share this video, and join us in the next chapters. Because what is coming may change your way of seeing reality.